Hi everybody, I'm Nadi from PayBee and we're going to go through PayBee for events and galas today. So PayBee is built on one mission, which is to tap into the moment of inspiration. So whenever somebody is inspired, they connect to your organization, they love the work you're doing, and then when they ask you, hey, how can I help? And at that moment, if you tell them, go to our website or send us a check, they'll say, oh, I'll do it when I get home. And unintentionally, life happens and that opportunity is gone. So the donor couldn't make the impact that they wanted, and the nonprofit lost out on those funds. So our goal as a company is to make sure that never happens. Right? So as a quick example, I'd like to show you a demo of how PayBee for donation works. As you can see, this is just my phone, and we're going to show you the donor experience. We do believe that even your business card can be a point of inspiration. So on my business card is a little QR code, which I'm going to show you in just a second. And to donate through the business card, all I need to do as a donor is to turn on my phone camera. I don't need any special app at all. So just my regular phone camera, I'm going to tap on it. This was the business card that I was talking about. And I point to the QR code and a little notification shows up on the top. So I tap on that notification, and then I will get connected directly to the organization and to the cause that I'm raising money for. So very quickly I can understand that how my money is going to help, again as a donor. So let's just say I want to donate towards the sanitation for a village. So I pick that. Again, the form is super short to put in your email and the name, because as soon as you put in a long form in front of people, they'll say, oh, I'll do it later, and we just don't want that resistance, right? So I'm going to hit donate here, and then I get connected to the payment page. It picks the best method of payment for that device. So since I'm using an Apple device, it shows me the Apple Pay option. It would show me the Android Pay on Androids, or give me the ability to pay with either a credit card or a bank account if I didn't have either of those set up. So let's just say I'm going to do Apple Pay. I tap on the black button, Touch ID, and done. Donation done. It took under 30 seconds to get through a donation. The donor is going to get a receipt immediately, and the funds will get transferred directly to the organization. So now going back to our presentation. So that was the PayBee donation demo. Going on to specifically events and galas, right? This is the most important event for you as a nonprofit. Your biggest donors are going to be there. Majority of your fundraising will happen at this one event, right? And you want to make sure that you put on a super smooth show and things are running just like clockwork, because that's the impression that you're going to lay on your donors. And when they're going to make a donation, they're going to think about how well you run your organization, and they choose to give the money to you, right? So you do want to make sure you put on a really good show. Typically at your event, there are multiple things that you're going to be doing. You're going to be sending out invitations before the event, giving your donors the ability to buy tickets for your galas. And then coming into the event, you do check-in, you're going to run the pledge drive. There could be other parts like silent auction, live auction, raffles, and then you'll be doing checkout and follow-ups for incomplete pledges. So typically you'll be using a lot of spreadsheets to keep track of all these events, along with few different tools. Like you'll have something for ticketing, you'll have something for your credit card swipe, a different solution or a plan in place to handle checks, cash, everything. And then you have to put all the information together, right? There are three parts where we see the experience could be a lot better. So one is at the time of check-in, where again it's a super manual process, or you have your volunteers who are sitting with spreadsheets trying to strike off names. Then there is the pledge part, where you typically have a card and donors have to fill in their information, Some have more legible writing than the others, and some donors are just not as comfortable putting their credit card number down on paper, and it gets mailed out, and the donation gets processed in a few days, and at some point they'll get a receipt, right? The other biggest piece where there is a lot of confusion is at the time of checkout, where volunteers are pretty much scrambling, trying to figure out, okay, what exactly did the donor do? What did they do at live auction, at silent auction, at raffle? And they're trying to total all that up while a donor has been at your event for 3 hours and is standing in front of them with a credit card ready to go home, right? They just want to close their pledge. This is what we see happening typically at events, right? So the PayBee approach is that there needs to be one solution for all your needs, right? Whether it's the ticketing and invitations, at the event you have your volunteers who are doing check-in, you have your pledge drive, or you have checkout, right? There should just be one solution which will cover your entire event, right? Our strong belief is like tech should enhance your event. We would never tell you or your donors to go online and do this, because as soon as you send a donor online on the web, they're going to open Instagram and Facebook, and you've lost the attention of the donor. You just don't want that to happen, right? So we will snap into whatever event you have, whatever plan you have, and we'll enhance all those parts of the events. Another big part of PayBee is to help you follow up on incomplete pledges. A lot of time donors have to leave early, or they want to pay from a different account, various different reasons, and they don't end up completing their pledges on the day of the event. PayBee will automatically send reminders and make sure those pledges are completed. So with this approach, let me go into more parts and let me explain you exactly how it works. So what happens is at the time of check-in, the donors are going to come in with their e-ticket, either on their phone or on a printout, or they could also just give their name, right, at the time of check-in. Our system also handles walk-ins for people who haven't been pre-registered or haven't been assigned tables. They can be handled as well. Volunteers play a pretty big part in the entire solution, and the whole idea is that you can scale up volunteers as needed. So what that means is at the start of the event, you can have all your volunteers doing check-in. And then as you realize, hey, most of my guests have checked in, you can have a part of them go and mingle with the donors. Then later in the event, you can have all your volunteers handling pledge drive, and then towards the end, they're all handling checkout. So again, you're, making the best use of your volunteers, and again, the donors get a really good experience because they never have to wait in long queues waiting for either check-in or checkout, right? And then during pledge drive, what happens is through PayBee, we generate the paddles. There's a soft copy of the paddles generated in the system that you can print out and stick on sticks. Each of them, as you can see in the picture, has a QR code. It gets pre-assigned to the guest. The name is printed on there. And then volunteers get leveraged in a way where during pledge drive, you'll have one volunteer assigned to 2 or 3 tables. And then that volunteer is responsible for capturing the pledges on their tables only, right? So with this divide and conquer method, we make sure that not a single pledge is missed. Right? And again, we're not making the donors pull out any phones or anything like that. There is no filling up forms, so everything's electronic, and things go really smoothly during a pledge drive. Again, we will be demoing these pieces, so you'll see exactly how they work. Okay? The way it works in the background is we have a cart system. So for this donor, with the panel number 246, a digital cart gets created in the back end. And as they participate in different parts of the event, whether it's raffles or live auctions or silent auctions, fund and need, those entries get entered into the cart by the volunteer. The donors don't have to do anything at all, right? So, for example, if George won a silent auction, and a necklace for $400, a volunteer will add that particular necklace item to George's cart number 246 for $400. And then what happens at the time of checkout is either a donor can do a self-checkout, where they can scan their own paddle, the little QR code that I showed you, and see a list of items in their cart and do a self checkout, or they can walk up to a volunteer who can process either credit card, cash, or check, uh, and for the donor. So let me get to a demo, and we're going to show you exactly how it works. Let's go over here. So again, this is my screen. This is my phone right here. Again, as you remember, the donor did not need any app, but a volunteer gets an app that they will be using at the event, right? So I'm going to open my PayBee app. And then there's going to be a volunteer on the top right, which I'm going to hit. And I'm authorized to be a volunteer at the event, right? So any person can't just come and process donations or check in your guest. The volunteer has to be pre-authorized by the organization. Okay? So now here there are multiple things that they could do. They could either check in a guest, they could add donations to their paddle and help with checkout, or they could do like bid entry. They're pretty much just like about a couple of buttons that they're going to use throughout the night. And now let's get into the demo, and we're going to do check-in. So this is the screen that the volunteer is on. Let's say they are checking in, right? And they're going to point it to the QR code that the donor brings in. So let's say this is the QR code that the donor brings in. On my volunteer app, I'm going to hit check-in. Then I point it to this QR code. Right? And then make this bigger so you can see this is Nidhi's group, a group of 3. I tap to check in. And then I can either check in all the 3 guests if they've come in, or just 1 or 2 of the guests. So let's just say only Nidhi came in and Julia and Apta have not. So hit check in, checked in. Give them the paddle and the table that was pre-assigned. Let's go check in. And then now maybe the next guest comes in. Apta comes in. She doesn't have the email. We can still check them in by searching with their name. So this is how you would check in the entire group very quickly. Now let's move on to the next part, which would be the pledge drive, where we are adding items to people's carts. So the volunteer is going to go into bid entry. They're going to pick the campaign, which has the pledges already pre-filled. So let's say that the MC is making an announcement. How many of you would like to give $5,000 and adopt a school for life? The volunteer is going to go to that page and be ready. And now as people raise the paddles on their assigned tables, they're going to add those numbers in. So let's say I'm a volunteer, and on my tables, paddle number 101 raise their hand. So I hit add. 102 raise the hand, add. 105 raise the hand, add. 888 raise the hand. And again, that was not assigned, so it will catch that. So just like this, I'll keep adding in the paddle numbers, and I hit close. And when I do that, a pledge of $5,000 is going to get added to all those people's carts. Next, the MC will say, okay, we are going to go into the next category, which would be for 5 schools, and the same process will continue. Right? I'm going to go back. Now, at the end of the event, just like this, all the pledges kept getting added to people's carts, including silent auction and live auction, right? And at the end of the event, 2 things can happen. Either a donor can do a self-checkout, which I'm going to show you in a second, or they can walk up to a volunteer, and the volunteer is going to hit this middle button which says scan checkout. They can either scan their paddle, or they can search the paddle number. Let's just search today 101, and then they're going to see all the pending items in that donor's cart. So this donor had made a pledge of $5,000. More donations can be added here or can be edited and removed if required. So let's just say they're going to do a checkout, and then a volunteer can process either cash, card, or check from that donor. So they can do cash, and they can hit record at the bottom. They can do a credit card, and they can either enter it or they can hit scan and point it to a credit card, and it will read the digits of the credit card. The other option is using a check, where you can say record front and take a picture of the check, and then that gets recorded, right? For example, if this is my check, I take a picture and it gets recorded. I hit record, confirm, and done. The donation is completed, right? So, and then they're back to this page. So the entire event, the volunteer is only using this one page for all their actions. Now coming back to our presentation, over here. The donors doing a checkout, they would pretty much just scan the QR code on their paddles and check out exactly like how I showed you of the business card. They'll just see a list of the pledges that they've made at the event, and then they can close their cart right there with Apple Pay or credit card or bank account. All right. There is live tracking and reports that get generated. Data is updated to the very second. So as an event organizer, you exactly know how your event's doing, how much money is coming in, what part of it has been processed already, what part of it is pending, as well as other stats like how many people have checked in and who's checked in and all those kind of things. We also give you the ability to kind of have interesting features like this digital live tracking wall that we have, right? So in this scenario, one of our nonprofits used this where they had 4 galas going on at the same time. And there was pretty much like a little competition that was set up among the 4 chapters. Like here you can see Miami hasn't even started, right? And it's edging people to kind of compete with each other and donate more. And then what we did is we actually took it to the next level, where as a donor you could scan this QR code, which would be put up on a big screen, and when they scan that with their own phone, their brick will start glowing across all the screens. So just like a little fun element that they had at that event, right? And we'll work with you to kind of come up with some interesting scenarios, and if you wanted to portray in a different way, we can kind of work with you on that. Those are really fun projects for us, right? In terms of results, we typically check out a group of about 300 people in 10 minutes. All the volunteers are doing checkouts. Some donors are doing checkouts on their own. Typically we see about 20% of donors do self-checkout, and in about 15 minutes we've seen the event crew actually start stacking up the chairs and turning off the lights, because everything is processed, right? About 10% of pledges are typically abandoned, and PayBee system will send out reminders, and most donors will complete it the next day. So it will send them a very targeted email with all the information pre-filled, the amount pre-filled. So all they have to do is just hit the payment button and make the payment. Donations go up by a minimum of 10 to 20% is what we've heard consistently from all our organizations. In terms of setup time, it takes about 30 minutes to set up entire PayBee technology end to end. We also do volunteer trainings where we'll do a quick video call of about 10-15 minutes and show them exactly the scenarios which would be applicable to them for your event. So they are all prepped and ready to go on the day of the event. We'll also send out a playlist with YouTube videos that they can watch later if required. These are some of our clients that we've been working with. Coming back to a little bit of data and housekeeping, all the donor and donation data just belongs to you, your organization. It's not shared with anyone else. At the end of the day, all the donations get collected and sent to you directly. We never touch the money. It goes directly into your bank account. And PayBee is built on the best services and security standards. And that is the end of the events piece. Thank you very much.